All right. Welcome to week 4 in Capstone 805. My name is Clint, and I want to get going on this week's content and what this week's submission is. So, essentially, there are a couple parts of this week's submission, but the common theme for this week is project management. And so we can talk about lots of things. I have posted inside of Blackboard several PowerPoint presentations around project management. We did talk about one or two of those early in the term in the first couple of lessons, and we talked about a team. We talked about communication between team members and how that can get really messy with multiple people. We talked about the hierarchy of management, and one of the benefits of hierarchy of management is the reduced number of roadmaps that communication flows through, so that less likely that communications will get miscommunicated. Okay, so what we're going to do today is start looking at project management from a perspective of what tools are available, how they work, and then actually setting one up. And once we set up a project management tool this week, you will be expected to continue using the project management tool throughout the term. Okay, so that will be an expectation from this point forward. Okay, and each one of your project progress reports, so progress milestones, so milestone 2, 3, and the final submission, will all have part of the rubric outlining: have you continually maintained your project management tool, used it for task delineation, movement of tasks through the Kanban board, and had non-verbal communication with your teammates by using project management tool. Okay, so that is going to be fairly continuous for the rest of the term. So let's quickly look at what this actual requirement is. Inside of Blackboard, we have Lab 2 here. The due date will be effective for whatever term you're watching this. The current term, it's due February the 12th. Okay, but we go into the project management tool, and essentially the write-up is all right here. It's pretty straightforward. I'll zoom in a bit here so we can basically go through it. Basically, the long and the short of this week's assignment is this. We're going to investigate project management tools. We're going to find out what are the important features of these tools, what are the benefits, what are the pros, what are the cons of the different tools. Okay? In order to be able to do such an analysis, you sort of have to get up to speed with what are the features of project management tools. What do project management tools actually do? You can't compare how good one is to another until you actually know what their purpose is and how you're going to use them. Okay, so this will take a little bit of research on your own, watching some YouTube videos, watching what is project management, watching those kind of things. Okay, inside of Blackboard, I have provided some links for you under this week for some videos to watch. Hopefully they're not so outdated. I do every year try and update the videos so we have newer modern content. If you find a video online that I don't have listed that you felt was really good and it helped you, by all means let me know and I will add it to the list of videos. Okay, but in the meantime, the idea here is there are many project software tools out there. Obviously, I think the most popular one over the years has been Microsoft Project itself. However, Microsoft Project is one that is actually rarely used today. It is used by people who learned it many years ago and continue to use it. But because of it being a standalone application and not being cloud-based, it is actually quite difficult and costly for companies to use in medium to large size teams. And so, yeah, Microsoft Project has really gone by the wayside with the online services now available through cloud computing. There are a ton of online project management tools that do everything the project can do, but do it online in a 100% collaborative environment. All right, where project is an installed software, so each and every person who would be using it would have to install it, and then the file that you're all opening has to be on a shared drive somewhere that you all have access to through VPN, and it just way too complicated for most small to medium-sized businesses. So in other words, the online tools have become everything. There are many, many online tools. All right. So for instance, some of the big ones, Jira. Jira is probably the biggest one out there right now. All right. Jira is the project management tool which I have forced groups to use in the past. This is sort of changing, so we're going to sort of try and change. Maybe we're changing too early. Maybe we're changing just on time. I'm not sure. I'm trying to keep up with the current trends. But Jira is still very, very, very popular, and I would highly recommend that you download Jira, install Jira, and play around with it. Having that experience and putting that on your resume is really, really important. And many students who have gone through this program who get a job placement or they're looking for their jobs, I have been told many, many times that they have been asked in their interviews, are you familiar with Jira? All right, so Jira is still very popular within the software industry, so something that you might want to do. Now, as part of this week's assignment, you are going to investigate Jira and see how it works and list its pros and cons, because by the end of the assignment, you must make a recommendation which one you would recommend people using. You will not be using Jira for the remainder of the course, but you do need to do enough work with it that one, you sort of learn it and put it in your resume, and two, you can make a recommendation. Okay? Another one that's very popular but expensive is Monday. So Monday.com is available. I don't believe they have a free version that we could use as students, but it is something that you might want to go into. Monday.com has become very popular with larger corporations as an online system. It is really professional. It has a ton of features. The only drawback is it doesn't have a free version. I think you get a 30-day trial or 7-day trial, and that's it. Like, there's no you can use it for free forever if your team is less than 4 people type of thing, right? Where a lot of the other ones do. Okay, Jira, for instance, you can have a team up to 5 people. Okay, so Monday is one that you might want to look at and investigate. Another one is Trello. Trello is really, really popular in the agile development world. Trello is a project management tool that was built specifically for agile development, and so it is actually quite popular. It actually is good for systems where you want to track what people are doing for a reward system. So you can assign points for completing things, and you can have like a points race and give rewards when certain point thresholds are reached and those kind of things. So there's some features in there which are really good with Trello. And last but not least, there is GitHub Projects. Okay, GitHub Projects is something that has been in development for several years. It's came out about 5 or 6 years ago, but they've been slowly improving it, and it is at the point, or almost at the point, where it is a full-blown project management tool. It's still missing a few features, but I'll let you guys research that in your research, okay, for your recommendations. But because of its integration directly with GitHub, since it's literally part of GitHub, it is absolute seamless integration with GitHub, and GitHub is literally the source control, version control that's used by 90% of companies out there. So having something that literally is by the same company, that is in the same place, in the same location, you only have to set up with your users once, you don't have to link it, all this stuff. It has a severe growth curve with it right now, where I believe, this is just an opinion, I could be wrong, we may be going back to Jira again, but I believe within the next year or two, the number of companies using GitHub Projects will surpass Jira, and it will be the one of choice moving. So for trial sakes, we're going to be using GitHub Projects for this term. All right, so after you've researched the 3 or 4 different project management tools out there, made a pros, cons, features, all the things, make a recommendation, you are then, as part 2 of this week's project, is to actually set up GitHub Projects. So as part of last week's submission, you had to set up GitHub repository where you're going to keep your source control, your files and that. You're then going to now extend that by creating a project. And I can demonstrate, this is another group from another term's project. This is an actual project from another term. But let me show you a little bit about what they've got going on here. Actually, it's a current project from another course, but I can show you what's going on. So essentially, when you have a repository, you can have your code repository here. You can see they've got their chat app repository here, the README file, etc. Then what they've done is they've created a series of issues. And these issues are sort of tasks to be done. Like they're the tasks that need to be done. You can create milestones, all right? And these issues can be placed under milestones. And as you're working those tasks or these issues, you can see that you can get % complete. So say there's 50 tasks in there, you're done 5 of them, it's going to say 10%. Now, it's not perfect. Obviously, some tasks are bigger than other tasks, but generally, it's actually a pretty good rule. The more micro task oriented you go, so the more that your tasks are smaller and yet you take a bigger task and break it down into smaller tasks, the more you do that, making micro tasks where a task could take 20 minutes or a task could take 2 hours, but a task never crosses between days, all right? Your milestone numbers actually become much more accurate because every task ends up to be relatively the same amount of time requirement, and so % complete actually is a mathematical formula that has concrete evidence. It's not like you're saying, somebody asks you, so how complete are you? And you're like, based on my experience, which for you guys is done, I think we're about 37% done. And you're like, where did that number come from? You're like, just drop it off the top of your head, okay? This actually gives you a little number with some mathematics behind it to say, yeah, we're 37% done. All right, we have 300 tasks. We have completed 98 of them. There's our %. Okay, so yeah, the number I just said I think is around 32.5%. But anyways, yeah. Peaches and oranges. Okay, so basically you have your code repository. Right beside your code repository, you can create issues, and within those issues, you can create milestones. Once that has been done, you then can create a project. Okay, so this is where we link things together. So the code, issues, and milestones are all part of the repository part. Okay, then you can create a project. Within that project, issues can be promoted up to tasks. So you don't need to recreate them. You can take your issues and promote them up to tasks. So things like your to-do list, bug finds that you find in the software, which is what the issues were actually for originally, was for bug tracking, so testing and recording bugs and then moving the bugs through your process so you record when the bugs have been fixed and those kind of things. But you can now promote those up to tasks within the project management tool. So now I have projects, and as you can see, these guys have 81 to-do tasks listed here. I was very succinct with them that they should have micro tasks, so they're very small. So there's a lot of them, all right, but they're each small each, and so you can assign 3 tasks to a person, and like 3 days later they come back and they're all done, right? It's not like it's a task that's going to take you 3 days. It's everyone is like an hour, right? They're little tasks, okay? Then what's going to happen is you're going to set up this Kanban board. Now I think by default you have like to do, in progress, and done. Is the default. To do, in progress, and done. That doesn't really work for agile development. It doesn't work for software, okay? Because we have a few other steps that go into it. So at a minimum, I want your project set up like the one you see on the screen right here. So we have to do, in progress, in testing, in review, and done. And these are the statuses, okay? As we go through project management, we're going to go through a specific workflow of tasks that we complete from a project management perspective. And now let me try and explain this step by step. So when you're coming up with your list of tasks, there's something we're going to do in the future. We know we have to do it. It's been approved that we're going to do it. We create the issue. We promote it to a task. It goes into the to-do status. Okay? We then have our weekly meeting with our group members, our team, and we say, okay, these are the tasks we need to do this week. They have 81 tasks. They're not doing 81 tasks this week. They might do 10 or 15 this week. Okay? But they know which ones need to be done this week. Then they have a discussion whether you choose what topics you're going to do or they're going to be assigned to you. Every group's going to be different, but you're going to decide who's going to do which task. Once you do that, you can set these tasks, right? Let me see if I can click in here. Okay? You have these tasks. You can then assign the tasks to a user. Okay, so you can choose an assignee. So you have your list of members in here, and you can assign it. If you're the one taking it, you can simply click here and say assign to yourself. Okay, but if you're the project manager and you're assigning the tasks, then you'll choose the assignees here. Okay, so you'll assign that to a person. It will not move it, but it will keep. It won't move that task, but it will assign it to a person. So now when they log in, they'll see, okay, these are my tasks. When that person starts to work on that task, so this project management tool should be open all the time when you're working on this course, okay? Once you start working on that task, you're literally going to move the task by dragging it over. Okay, I won't move because this is somebody's live project. I'm not going to move it. But moving that task over into in progress, okay? So now we've got an in-progress task we're working on. You're going to minimize the project management tool. You're going to work away. You're going to do your stuff, do your code, do everything you think. And when you think you're done, okay, you're going to move that into testing. You're going to move this into testing, okay? Now, you're not submitting this to GitHub yet, like not to GitHub repository yet. You're not pushing your changes yet. Or having anybody else look at it yet. You just think you're done. Now you have to test it. Whether you've made unit tests in advance and you've already got automated testing due, or you have to manually test it through desk checks or user experience testing or whatever kind of testing needs to be done for that, but you're still doing it just yourself. Okay? So you move it into testing and you do whatever testing has to be done. If it fails any of your tests, move it back to in progress and go fix it. Then move it back to in testing, do the testing. When you think your task is done, tested, ready for review, you then move it from there into in review. Okay? You put it in review. Now it's just going to sit there, okay, until the next group meeting. In your next group meeting, one of your agenda items is to go through the review, each and every item in the review. The person who did that task presents it to the group, says, this is what it is, here's the code, this is what I did, this is how I tested it. Everybody can have a quick look. If everybody agrees and it's approved, it looks good, moving on, okay? You move that task from in review to done. Once it goes in done, no one person is to blame anymore because everybody has approved that task. So if something goes wrong with something that's in done, it's nobody's fault. It's everybody's fault. Okay? Everybody's got to figure out how to fix it. Okay? This is why you have the review process, to take the blame off of single people. You have an approval process where 4 people look at something and say, yeah, that looks good. Or maybe that one of those 4 people sees something that, okay, that doesn't seem quite right. Let's have a discussion. Or better yet, in teams where you have one person doing database, one person doing user experience, one person doing back-end modeling, and one person doing front-end layout, then everybody has an understanding what they're doing. And does the piece that this person's done fit into what I'm doing? Yes or no? And so that's sort of the idea, that you can have, does this fit in with what I'm doing, or do you foresee a conflict coming up here? And then you need to have that discussion now so that we get, okay, who's changing? How are we going to collaborate here so that it's going to work together? Or those things. So through that review process, if something doesn't look right and it's declined to be approved, it actually moves all the way back to in progress again. Okay? So we move it back to in progress again. We then can either leave it assigned to the current user, or if that now involves somebody else because it was an integration issue, now they need to talk and work together, then you can change the assignees at that point. Okay? Then it goes through the progress again. You do the coding, you test, do the coding, test, do the coding, test. Once you're satisfied, move it to in review, and in the next meeting, it's going to come up again, and you're going to discuss it until finally it gets approved by everybody and it moves to done. Okay? When I talked about communicating with your group non-verbally, this is what I mean. One of the things that happens, especially in the academic world or in junior coding worlds, is that you have a team of 5 people, you're doing your work, and you're worried, ooh, John's been hanging around at the water cooler a lot, talking. Does he have his reports done? Like, you're worried about everybody else, okay? And you're like, oh, I don't think they're going to be done, and I'm going to be done my part, and they're not going to be done their part, and this is going to be a mess because we need it all to fit together before we hand it in to the professor or whatever, right? And so there's that silent stress that happens amongst group members with the trust level of your teammates. Do you truly 100% trust your teammates, even if they're your friends? Okay? Do you trust them that they're going to get their work done on time so that your work looks good? Okay? So, because if something doesn't go, the whole thing fails and everybody looks bad. All right? So, by having you using this system and moving it from progress to testing to progress to testing and moving it back and forth, you don't need to have a meeting to tell people or answer the question, are you working on this? You don't need to have that conversation. You don't have to do it. If you doubt, you just go look, because you can see and track the history of everything. Oh, it moved here this time. Oh, 20 minutes later it went back. So they were testing and they failed something. And it's good. You know that people are doing things. You're communicating with your team without having to say anything, without having to have a meeting, without having to have doubts and stress, just by using this board. Okay, so it's really important that your project manager knows we're making progress, but he doesn't need to come out and talk to you. Okay, when your project manager comes out and talk to you, it could be a little stressful situation. Okay, all he has to do is look at the board and he can see things moving around. Okay, I'm good. We're making progress. Hopefully it works. Okay, so that non-verbal communication is extremely important within teams of developers working together. Okay, so that you don't have to have 10 meetings a week. You can get away with 3 meetings a week or 1 meeting every morning or something like that. A lot of modern development companies, they literally have a meeting every morning, a half an hour meeting at the beginning of every single day, and everybody knows what everybody's doing on every side. And if you're working on something, you know who's working on the part that's parallel to it, and you can go and have a conversation if you need to. Okay, I'm working on the part, what you're doing is going to go into my part, so how are you putting it out so I know how to bring it in, right? You can have those conversations, and then everything should, crossing fingers, slide nicely together. All right, and that's sort of how larger software projects have to work. Okay, so for week 4's task, you're going to research at least 4 different project management tools, 1 per person. If you're a group of 5, find another one. Okay, pick another one. The 4 that I'm suggesting right now are Jira, Mondays, Trello, and GitHub Projects. Okay, if you're a group of 5, then go find another one. There's hundreds of them out there. I'm sure you can find one. Okay, so each one of you review a different one, then have a meeting, consolidate your notes, and as a group, come up with a recommendation which one you would choose if you were to have choice of which one you would do. Okay? Look at all kinds of things about feature sets, pros, cons, cost, time to development, all that stuff, okay? Integration with other parts of the development environment, those kind of things. Then make a recommendation. Regardless of your recommendation, you are then going to expand your GitHub repository, which you made last week as far as Progress Report 1 goes, and then add in projects. Set up the Kanban board view that you see right now. These guys have several different views. So they've got so you can have it as a work breakdown structure, like so. You can have it as a Kanban view like this. You can even set up views that say this is what it looked like at this point in time. So you can sort of see the history of it as you want to as well. These guys have a few cool ideas that they were working on, and that's fine. You guys do you, okay? But the idea here is that set up this chart. If you, at a sort of a minimum, I want these 5 statuses. If you guys can think of something that's going to work for you and you can justify it, by all means, you don't have to follow this exactly. I've given you this because this is a good model for software, but let's see what you guys come up with as well, okay? Set this up, then you're going to put in a whole bunch of tasks. Now, until we get coding, your tasks are not going to be software tasks, but you're going to have something to do every single week, and each individual person is going to assign things. So you can put a bunch of tasks in there. Look at the upcoming deliverables. What are the assignments coming up that you have to do? Who's going to do the database designs? Who's going to do this? Those are upcoming assignments. So go look at the upcoming assignments and then put a bunch of tasks in here. So as they come up, you assign different people and how it's going to work. But I want to see it initially set up, okay? And maybe do a few test tasks, issues, promote them to tasks, and move them through the board. Because you should be able to go ahead and look at the tasks, okay? And see the log. You can see how it moved through the log. If you haven't done the issues to tasks linking properly, then for some reason this log is empty and nothing ever gets put in this log, and you can't tell, okay, this is the history, this is the workflow that this task went through. You need to be able to see this this workflow, okay? So make sure that maybe do a few test tasks to make sure that you are getting these logs. So you can literally just make a task, drag it like through a simulated pathway, and then go in here and see, hey, what do we got? Okay, so maybe show a few tests in there that you actually got it working the way it should be. Okay, that's it. So that's this week's assignment. It's basically researching some project management tools, making a recommendation, setting up GitHub projects, and populating it with some tasks with respect to the upcoming deliverables that you will have. Making sure that all of your teammates are collaborators, including me. All right. My Seneca GitHub account is rcmacdon-Seneca. Let me see. Do I have this? Am I logged in here? Ooh. Let me see here. If I go right here, if I click on right here, you can see right there, that is my Seneca GitHub user account. So go ahead and add me as a collaborator to your GitHub as well. You should have already done that last week, but just in case you haven't, please make sure that I have access as a collaborator in your project as well, within GitHub projects, okay? And other than that, submit your report and your recommendations and good to go. All right, hopefully that's a good summary of what you need to do for week 4. And I will see you at our next in-class meeting. Ciao.